And then when it's 8 o'clock, I'll start it at, or 7, I'll start the recording.
Okay, disregard that. Is the answer yes?
Yeah. I just was kind of waiting close to 7, and then I got your text. I'm like, all right, I guess I better turn it on.
You know, we start to get a little nervous when we know these things only work about half the time. Or at least I do anyway.
You got me, Chuck?
Hello, John.
Okay, good deal.
How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
How's everybody else?
Good.
Good.
Hey, knock it out.
Hey, Christine, was anyone else coming here to the meeting?
I don't know if, is it Melinda? No,
In Brandy's office. I
Yeah.
doubt it since I'm here.
I sent it to her, but, and Eric was on there. There may be the other gentleman, this secretary for the HOA.
And, Mr. Fool just texted me he's available if needed.
I don't think I'm not sure it will.
Yeah. I figured I'd text it instead.
You probably should probably tell him because I don't think I want to tell him.
No. Just being surprised.
Did the guy that called about phone was he calling in or zooming in or?
Yeah, he's the one that had the same question about the,
Oh, he's the HOA guy.
well, there's two, no. But no, he wasn't
Well,
attending.
you didn't talk to him. John, oh, here comes. Oh, no, she's on the phone. John, I guess, called him and he was, sounds like satisfied with her.
Yes.
We also had someone call about the stormwater. He owns the lot where the dedicated stormwater
Eric
is on.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
So he had done a lot of work on that previously.
Yeah.
And he told me a lot about stormwater. Like, you know, that's not the person to answer that question.
I think we're missing
No,
Nathan and the mayor.
yeah,
No,
just them two.
what's
But you
their-
got three-way.
And the one. I didn't have been checking the list.
Greg Martin. that's him.
That was Nathan. And 3, 4, oh, that's Eric.
Yes,
Right.
should be.
He was calling. Yeah, plan approved in 16.
I don't know.
When it was supposed to
I was,
be years ago. That's what-
yeah, I was thinking 15. did, but I didn't start it. I figured if I helped you remember, I didn't have to do this. It's in the waiting.
Okay, I've got 7 o'clock straight up. Let's go ahead and open up this August 24th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Welcome everyone tonight. First of all, who's the phone number of 4141? Last
Eric.
four.
I believe that is Eric Hodge that's representing the final plat or the preliminary plat for Creek Bridge. Eric, if you can unmute and let us know if that is you or not. I believe that's who it is.
Hi, this is Eric Hodge with Roselle Engineering. Can you hear me?
Good deal. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure who all the players are tonight. Okay, again, welcome. First thing up tonight will be the approval of the minutes from the July 27th meeting. If everyone has had an opportunity to review, if there are any additions, deletions, or changes, please state. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I was present the 27th.
Okay. You got that, Christina?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else? Then I would need a motion with the addition of Pete being at the meeting.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes with the addition of Pete being at the meeting.
Okay, we have a first. Do I have a second? Click off, Daryl.
I'll second.
There you go. We're good. Okay, we have first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, no scheduled visitors or guests, I don't believe, at this point. No unfinished business. First thing under new business is letter A, preliminary plat, Creek Bridge Phase 3. Owner is MBYB LLC, located at Richwood and North 21st Street. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the application is for the preliminary plat for Creek Bridge Phase 3. Originally, this was approved as a Phase 2 back in probably around 2015, 2016. And so the preliminary plat had expired. And so they're bringing it back through for renewal of that preliminary plat. And now it's called Phase 3 because Phase 2 has been completed to the west. Staff has reviewed the application. All the comments have been satisfied. We do have adequate utility capacities to serve this development, and the road access is already constructed as far as kind of the apron approach to this road off the street to the south. There was some questions about stormwater. The stormwater was handled with the original platting of Phase 1, where there's a regional basin to the south. This will drain the stormwater from the street and the overland flow stormwater through the existing drainage easements into that basin to the south. In addition, there was some questions about a buffer yard that we have a representative, I believe, on here from the HOA that had some questions about the maintenance of those buffer yards. This preliminary plat does require that buffer yard along that eastern property line due to the existing use to the east and zoning. So with that, with all the comments satisfied by staff in our review, staff does recommend approval of the preliminary plat Phase 3.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Hodge, is there anything you care to add? Yes, Daryl.
Oh, just very brief,
Yes,
a
Daryl.
very brief summary.
Yes,
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hodge. We'll come back to you, Daryl.
Okay.
Yeah, just in summary, as Mr. Smith stated, this phase was originally started about 5 years ago in 2015. We prepared the preliminary plat and all engineering plans required, which were submitted and approved by the City of Ozark and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. And right before the project was going to go to construction, the previous developer decided not to pursue this project any further. Subsequently, he put the project on hold, and now the new developer has picked up where the previous developer has left off. We are using the exact same street and lot layout. Nothing has changed with the exception of the addition of the landscape buffer that is now required along the east property line. So what you see in front of you is the exact same preliminary plat with the exception of the revisions that have been requested here recently this time around. And we have already submitted engineering plans to the Public Works Department, and they are currently under review. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have at this time.
Okay, stand by. Daryl, do you have a procedural question or a question regarding this application?
It pertains to this application.
Can you give me just a minute?
Directed.
Let me open up the public hearing and I'll come back to you.
Okay,
All right, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here with us tonight that is here to speak in favor of this outside the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak opposed to this?
Hey, Chuck?
Yeah.
Chairman, we have someone in the room here also representing the application, so if there's any questions or if you'd like to add, I'd be glad to hear those.
Okay. Would anybody care to speak?
My name is David Healy. I represent Ed O'Toole. And I just, what Eric said, reiterate, obviously, this is good development for Ozark. We understand there's an issue with buffer yard and the HOA that was presented here recently. And it's going to be my intention to dialogue with the HOA and get that resolved as quickly as possible. So I would be asking tonight to approve the preliminary plat with the idea that we're very much aware of the HOA issue as far as who's going to maintain this buffer area, and it is being addressed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Healy. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to speak in opposition of this or have questions regarding this from the public? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open it up to the commission. Go ahead, Daryl.
yes, on page 13 of our packet, under the planning and development applications, it shows that this is a PUD. It's not a PUD, is it?
No, the property is zoned R1C.
That's what that's what it says in one place, but in this application, it says it's right up at the top, the type of application, it says it's a PUD. That's what's checked.
Oh, it's because on the application, yes, they had checked instead of preliminary plat, PUD preliminary plat. So you are correct. The application should have checked preliminary plat, and apologize, we missed that.
All right. That's all I have, Chuck.
Good catch, Daryl. Anyone else? Any other comments from the commission? Yes, John.
Yeah, I just want to know about the landscape barrier buffer zone. Can somebody explain that in a little bit more detail? Kind of like what is the width of it? Are there plantings? Are there trees? How does that work? I don't think we've ever come across that before. I can't remember it.
Yeah, and I can explain that. We've had a few of these come up, but this is a buffer yard B, which is a 25-foot landscape buffer yard along those lots, along that eastern side where it butts that multifamily zoning. In that buffer yard is 25 feet wide. There's 2 canopy trees, 2 understory trees, 2 evergreen trees, and 15 shrubs per 100 feet. In addition to that, there is the 8-foot high privacy fence. This had occurred on another subdivision, Elk Valley, that you guys had seen a few months back. In a lot of cases, the subdivision is abut another residential single family, so the buffers aren't required. But since in this case, there is a multifamily to the east that does require that buffer yard. The buffer yards are also to be installed with the public improvement plans of the subdivision and not individual lots as they're developed with a home. So when they build the streets and the utilities infrastructure, the buffers to be installed at that time for approval before final plating.
That answer your
Thank
question,
you.
John?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment, question? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Daryl. You got to unmute, Daryl.
I make a motion that we approve.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the preliminary plat at Creek Bridge Phase 3. The owner is MBYB LLC at West Richwood and 21st Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jeff, get a second. So a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Matt Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Rex Winslow,
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
All right, good deal. Thanks for coming in tonight, Mr. Healy.
Thank you for having me.
You as well, Mr. Hodge. Okay, next up, B, amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 410.170, submission of the final plat application. Mr. Smith, if you please.
Yes, the next few ordinances here, we briefly have talked about in the past and went into some great detail on those, but on this first one here, it's amending the final plat process in regards to dedicated property. If you look in your packet on that last page under L, under the ordinance, you'll see that there's some red highlights of underscore and strike-throughs for the language. This is where we kind of try to clearly address the dedication of public land or public use. In a lot of cases, homeowners or citizens have felt like when it said dedicated for public, that meant dedicated to the city of Ozark. When in doubt, or when opposite of that, it is not. It's actually dedicated to the public, meaning the owners within that subdivision. So we've clarified that note and noted as dedicated for public use. In addition to that, we have made a note in there for clarification. If an HOA ever dissolves, then the responsibility and ownership of those dedicated common areas, public spaces, public use areas, all defer back to the property owners within that subdivision. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions on that ordinance change.
Okay, let's, thank you, Mr. Smith. Let's open up the public. Is there anyone here to speak either in favor or opposed to this, or someone from the audience have questions? Is there anyone from the audience tonight other than Mr. Healy?
I'm from the audience.
Okay, let's go right ahead, sir.
I have nothing for this one. I have something for the next one.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome. We'll get to you in just a minute. Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Questions, comments? Well, I have a real quick question for Mr. Gardner. Mayor, under letter L, if this is approved and the responsibility has to go back to the owners of a development, is that something that has to be disclosed to someone that's buying in that neighborhood so that they would know that, or would it be up to them to find that information out?
Well, anything that's any kind of information that could affect somebody's interest in the property or their willingness to buy it or sell it, I think needs to be disclosed. In this particular case, I don't know that somebody would know what to disclose. It almost seems after the fact, but it seems a little loose to me that somebody could buy a house knowing that could be possible, that some of the public area could be turned over to them, but not know it until and not know that would be a problem until the homeowners association failed, and then it would turn back over to them. So I guess if that was written in the homeowners association rules, then that definitely would be disclosed. Should be, because that would come up in a title commitment, and it would be the agent's responsibility to disclose those restrictions. I can't tell you that always happens, but it is something that I think there needs to be some teeth to that to make sure that a future owner would know that. So, yeah, that's the best I can do. That's a good legal question. I don't know how else to respond to that. I know that I sure wouldn't want to be surprised after the fact that I would be responsible for something like that. If
Well, I bring it up because of our pre-meeting, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, I'm finished.
I bring it up because at our pre-meeting, we talked about the possibility if this does happen, it could be attached to their property tax. And, that could be quite the surprise for somebody. Matt, you have something you care to add?
Well, I just wondered, what's the mechanism for that? Do you link it to their property, or do they get a fifth of the area? Or I don't see how you're going to actually do that. Make the responsibility be to something besides the association.
Well, I'll help clarify some of that. It doesn't actually transfer an ownership. It just transfers the more of the maintenance side of that. So kind of back to how we recoup that or do that, the city has to go in and maintain or mow those common areas, which is a lot of the issues we have. Then on a tax assessment at the end of the year, every lot in that subdivision be assessed at value. I wish now that Mr. Healy was still here. He was explaining to us right before the meeting because he was asking about this ordinance change, something that we're definitely going to look into probably next week when Amanda returns, our city attorney. Actually, an HOA is a non-for-profit, and by default, if they dissolve by state statute, it actually defers back to the owners in the subdivision. That may have been one of the reasons why the ordinance never clarified that. That was interesting to hear from a land use attorney that was just happened to be sitting here in this meeting. So, I think, so even though that we're making this change, it sounds like there is actually a state statute that actually clarifies what we're doing is what indeed happens.
Matt, does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have something to add to any part of this entire change? Anything else? There's a lot of information here. Are there any questions that you'd care to ask Mr. Smith? I know a lot of this we went over last week, but now that it's settled in for a week or so, has anything popped up that concerns you that we need to talk about a little bit more, or are we comfortable with moving forward? Mr. Gardner? Other way. You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, I went from unmuted to muted. No, I would just underscore what Cameron said. I think that's really a question for the city attorney to even determine whether or not we can put that kind of liability on somebody. It makes sense the way it's worded, but I'm just not sure that's something that we can do. So I would want to know what Ms. Calloway had to say.
Okay. Are there any commissioners that would be interested in taking that one step farther and having this section set aside? Or any thoughts on how you want to move forward on this? If we're going to approve this and move forward onto the Board of Aldermen, and then we find out next week that the city attorney has issues or questions, it seems like we're doing things a little bit backwards there.
Can I clarify something?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Calloway, our city attorney, she was assisting us in drafting this, and so she had actually had the final draft that she had sent back to us. So she has been in the loop in drafting this ordinance and all the following ordinance.
So is she comfortable with the legalities of this?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Jeff.
I'm just referring back to the experience I had when we lived in Turnberry, which had no HOA. And we took it upon ourselves to maintain a large rainwater runoff and mowed it and kept it up because my understanding from the city was the property itself was actually still owned by the developer of the housing addition, but he wouldn't sell the property off to a number of homeowners so we could actually have ownership of it. I'm going a long way around, I'm sorry. How would you handle if a homeowner in that development took care of the property? Could they in turn bill the city and then the city bill the other homeowners? I mean, I'm getting complicated here. But we never received anything, and I tried to create a homeowners association while I was there. Nobody wanted to do it. I mean, I talked to probably 100 homeowners in there at that time, and everybody was against it. I'm just saying, if someone that borders that property takes care of it, is there an out for them to get reimbursed in this procedure?
Not in our proposed ordinance, that wouldn't cover that. And the reason why this ordinance is coming up and becoming a hot topic of maintaining these common areas is because of Turnberry. Those common areas are still owned by the LLC. And because of having the LLC, there is no way for the city to go after a person to get reimbursement. So the city has been paying to mow some of those properties. And we only do that when there's a code enforcement complaint because of tall grass. So if there is a complaint by a neighbor, generally out in those subdivisions, we will go and maintain that and then foot the bill. In those cases, the city has just been paying for that and have no reimbursement or recourse for that money spent. So in this would resolve those situations where if we paid for it on the city side to maintain, we could recoup the cost. Remaining citizens in the city of Ozark aren't paying for that mowing. It actually is being covered by the citizens within that subdivision.
Mr. Smith, would the parks and some of the developments be affected by this in the same way? I'll take for example, Apple Creek. There's a park over here that the city maintains. There is no HOA over here, no active HOA, just as an example, not to insert myself into the story, but just as an example. That park that's being taken care of by the city, would that be continued to take care of by the city, or would the homeowners over here be billed for that beginning this year? Or are we all grandfathered in that's currently being done?
So I think there's mixed thoughts on that part. I've asked several people about that, whether we continue to maintain or not. That property has never been dedicated to the city of Ozark. We do not own that property. I think there's a history there of that park and maybe about 4 or 5 others in the city that everyone has assumed that's owned by the city, and we've always maintained those. I don't know down the road in the future if that means we'll continue to maintain those or have to reach out to those subdivisions and say, hey, by the way, you're going to start maintaining your own common areas. But that is an example of a park that at some point in time, the city did invest and put money in there as far as the equipment and have been mowing the detention area, and then it kind of reverted over and mowed the park as well. So I don't know that probably doesn't answer your question, but I don't know what the future plan is as far as continuing maintenance on those properties that we do not own.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, seeing no activity, I would entertain a motion. You're shy, one way or the other.
I move we approve it as presented.
I'm sorry, who said that?
Matt.
Okay, Matt, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor to approve amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 410.10170, submission of the final plat application. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Darryl McGuire,
I'm a little concerned with this until we have all the answers questioned, or all the questions answered. Can I ask a question at this point, Chuck?
You can.
Mr. Mayor, how do you feel about this? You're in tune with the real estate people. I mean, there's parks that's been donated all over the city that, you know, this could have an effect on. If everything's grandfathered in, then there's probably no problem. But if everything's not, like there's one in Chickasaw, there's one in Ard subdivision, Sunridge East. You know, how is this going to open up a can of worms that's going to cause the city a lot of headaches, or not? I'm a little concerned with it.
Well, Harold, I don't know the answer to that question because I have not spoken with Ms. Callaway about it. It seems that this particular ordinance, though, deals only with public areas that have been owned by a homeowners association that has been dissolved. The one in Apple Creek never had a homeowners association. The one in Chickasaw Woods never did. So I can't see where this would apply to those parks. But in the future, I think it opens up a can of worms. But I don't know the answers any further than that.
Sunridge East, where I live, has had a tennis court and a swimming pool and stuff that was owned by, it never did transfer to a homeowner association. But the original, it was part of a community park, or so to speak. But it was, it finally was sold off by the developer to private lot owners that would attend next to this. So I don't know. There's some unclear answers there to me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we still have a motion on the floor to approve as written. Did we ever get a second? I mean, you'll have an opportunity to vote here in a second, Daryl, so.
Right.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
You had a second roll call vote.
We're at the roll call vote. I apologize. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, it was Daryl McGuire. You can agree, disagree, or abstain.
I'm going to disagree as written.
Okay. Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Agree.
Jeff Garrison,
Nay.
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 John Dillon,
Agreed.
Matt Bettinghouse, you're muted.
Agree.
Thank you. Rex Winslow,
Agree.
Pete Renfro,
Agreed.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, next up, C, amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405 zoning regulations by enacting one new section 405.080 neighborhood meetings. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this ordinance, the purpose of this ordinance was to create a neighborhood meeting process so that applicants that are planning to bring an application through the commission and boards have an opportunity to meet with the public surrounding this application location. We've clarified in this proposed ordinance kind of the timeframe of completing this, along with the application notification process within 500 feet of the property boundaries. This will allow an opportunity for citizens to meet with the applicant / developer owner to address any questions and concerns regarding their application prior to coming to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Board of Alderman meetings. A lot of times we have meetings where some of the questions can't be answered based on the process that the application is in, whether it's zoning, annexation, platting, conditional use, vacation of right of way, and so forth. So we've prepared this neighborhood meeting process to allow those citizens to ask those questions. This ordinance does require that the applicant complete some documents to give the staff report. They're not actually part of the ordinance, but there are templates in there that we've included for the notification process. These meetings also are not held by the city, or the city would attend these. These are actually just as an FYI session with the applicant and the citizens surrounding this application location. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Go ahead and open us up to the public. Is there anyone here to speak on this?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Barton, could you just give your name and address for Christina, please?
Okay, Greg Barton, 2208 West Richwood.
Okay, sir, what's your question?
I like what is going on there. I would like to see it expanded to an example in our HOA, as you heard before, we're up to phase 3. There's going to be a phase 4 and 5. We'd like to add, I would recommend that we add the developer come to the HOA, the current active HOA, and say, hey, here's what's going on with plat or phase 4 or phase 5. And because I know there's a retention area coming. There's other things like we wanted to ask in that phase 3, but I wasn't smart enough to get on Zoom in time. But I liked what Mr. Healy said. So a meeting like that between HOA and a developer would actually help also, besides the other things that are mentioned there. That's all I had to say.
Okay, sir, thank you. Mr. Smith, you care to address that?
Yeah, the process that he is talking about, since I think he's referring to more the plating, since that is not a typical public notification process, those are not included. Those questions and times that come up during an annexation or zoning request process, since that is a plating phase, that is something that is excluded from this neighborhood meeting requirement. Again, because it's not a notification process by our ordinance that has to be sent out to the neighboring residents within these subdivisions. In addition, we have noted in here about the applicant is also to reach out to us in the HOA president or the HOA member that is overseeing the HOA process. So they are required to reach out to the HOAs in an active subdivision with an HOA.
Okay, Mr. Barton, anything else you care to add?
No?
Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Questions, comments? Mr. Poston.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, hold on, Nathan. Yes, Jean.
I love the idea of having neighborhood meetings. I'm not sure I like the idea of it being mandatory with applications and fees and reports. I think it'd be a great thing if we could dangle a carrot and entice them to do that or help them recognize the value of doing that. But to require a developer or another stage and another step, when they can already do that at planning and zoning meetings. That's the purpose of planning and zoning meetings. It may not be the most efficient way to do it. It may be a little messy, and we may have a lot of conversation, and sometimes that gets a little heated, but I feel like that's the place to do it, where that's the intersect of the public and the private, citizens and their government. And so I have a real hesitation with making it mandatory, especially in a city our size. Perhaps like in Springfield, it's the third largest city in the state, and I understand that their planning and zoning process and their time can get really burdensome. But in our case, that isn't the case. And so that's just a question I have, I guess, if there's any way to make it, to entice them to do that or invite them to do that with any kind of incentive, or if we have to make it mandatory.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith, you care to address her concerns?
Sure. As far as the mandatory, I'm not sure how we would not make it mandatory for all and then not being subjective to this guy has to do it, but this guy doesn't, how to clarify that. Also to clarify the other thought about allowing the discussions more at the planning zoning meetings. I appreciate that. What we found though is by having this ordinance, it allows questions to be asked about the details. Like for instance, if they're annexing property, when it gets to planning and zoning, you're there to talk about the annexation and not about the subdivision they're going to build or whatever. This allows the citizens to ask those questions, get them answered, or bring it up as concerns that at the time of that meeting, so that we have that in our staff report and the developer to address any of those with the citizens prior to the meeting.
Okay.
So then that conversation is not part of the public record, and planning and zoning commissioners may have no idea of what those comments and questions were and what the hesitations were.
Yes, those conversations are part of public record because in the packet, if you look at the affidavit where they've got to have the meeting and then the meeting summary, they're actually to verbalize all the questions and comments and it provide a sign-in sheet for those meetings. So they are part of the public record that would go in the staff report, depending on what that application is.
But that's an interpretation by third parties that were at that meeting, not direct. Right?
Cameron, we've lost your video, by the way. Oh, there you are.
You got it back. Something happened. It clicked off.
Up again. That's fine. Go ahead and answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think our camera is dying or something because it's lost its connection. To to whether it's subjective or what occurred, I can't answer that. I mean, they do provide the summary and the affidavit that they had these and proof that they did have these. I imagine if someone got to the meeting and made the comment and they denied it, then it's just a back and forth discussion. But again, I guess anyone can make up what they want. I mean, at the same time, this is just another step of trying to appease the neighbors of the developments around there, getting their questions answered. That when we've had some difficulties in the past meetings where we couldn't answer those questions for them, and it's upset a lot of citizens.
Thank you.
Well, I agree with that. I guess the only question that I have is when we get that summary in our packets, we have to be careful of not having a discussion outside of our lane just because it's on that summary. So if we're there talking about annexation and there's 8 or 10 comments or questions on the summary regarding lot sizes and types of homes, we just have to be careful to stay in our lane and not get into the weeds on all of that. But I mean, that's up to us. I get that. But that it'll be right in front of us as we are presented with the application. So we just have to be a little careful. Jean Ann, anything else you care to add?
Well, if an annexation is not involved in this, if it's just zoning issue, then that it doesn't come into play, I guess. I'm asking that. We really don't have two different issues to deal with. We're just dealing with the hearing on the zoning then, correct? Is that right?
Mr. Smith, you want to clarify that?
Not quite sure I understand the question, but the neighborhood metering requirement is required for any annexation, a zoning map classification change, a planned unit development, a vacation of public right of way, or a conditional use. So any of those items require the neighborhood meetings.
Yes, John.
Well, I kind of agree with both sides with regard to the pros and cons. The good thing about this is regardless of what issue you're talking about, whether it's annexation or zoning, is that the developer has to confront in the vicinity of the development itself, the people who live there, and they can present themselves as a community with sort of a community orientation about what they're interested in and what they would like to see the developer to do to comply with making it a better community. That's all good, which gets that sort of started before they come before the planning and zoning meeting. I agree with Jean Ann. I don't want to take away that organic thing that sometimes happens when the government confronts the homeowners or when they have difficulties with something that's been proposed for them. I believe that if it's contentious enough, we'll have all the fireworks we need, regardless of whether there's a meeting or not, and we can still do our job as government oversight. The red flag for me is that the summary falls directly in the hands of the developer. And not that I don't trust developers, it's just that, I mean, they're in charge of the narrative. And I just wondered what everybody thought about that.
That's a really good point. Mr. Smith?
Well, again, the summary would be in the packet and be part of public record. So if the citizens or neighbors come and they read the summary, they can speak up on opposition of the summary. And so they'd be able to address that with the commission and the board. I will say personally, I've done this in Springfield and I never once had any issues with the summary conflicting with the neighborhood meeting. They've always been a positive. The only downfall to these meetings is on the developer side, where it's just another step of time and money. But again, it allows the citizens to be able to address their concerns prior to these meetings and have most of the questions answered. A lot of times you will have these meetings and basically they just want to know what's going on, and they may not even show up at planning and zoning after that if they get their questions answered. But anyway, I don't suspect that there would be any concerns with the summary that wouldn't be pointed out at the public meetings if there's any discrepancy.
Yeah, I would think that I'm sorry, Jean Ann, go ahead. It's all right.
Oh, I was just going to ask, would there be a possibility that all of the commissioners could be notified of the neighborhood meetings as well, that could be part of the process?
We talked about that.
Sure, I mean, we could let the commission know of the notice, but to clarify again, generally, these are not saying you can't, but generally, they're not attended by staff or anyone on the commission board, just so the citizens and developers have a time to speak amongst themselves. But yes, we can include you guys on those notifications to let you know that there was one coming up.
Yes, John.
Well, once again, I think there's a possibility that a developer could actually endear themselves to any given community that they're trying to work with, which is what they should be doing in the first place. I also agree that if it ever gets to, when it comes before P&Z and the summary has not been presented correctly, we're going to hear about that. I believe that's true. All hell will break loose. So if there's a real problem and it's not presented, then we're going to know about that. So for me, that would be the only downside. I really like that symbiosis between, if it's possible, between a developer and a community. I like that a lot. But there are these other little flags that sort of stick up here and there. And I don't want planning and zoning to be left out of the mix. I want it to be the mix, actually. And this is just preliminary narrative to get us on the right path with regard to whatever development is going on at the time.
Okay, Ms. Poston, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just if you don't mind, Mr. Barton, his comment a while ago, it raised a question for me. Mr. Smith, if a developer buys a piece of property and they want to build a restaurant up next to a subdivision, they want it to be zoned commercial, and they have their meeting, and we're all good to go, right? That they're wanting to zone this commercial, they want to build a restaurant, that necessitates one of these meetings. At some point in here, that developer sells that land after this meeting's been had, and the new developer doesn't want to build that little mom and pop restaurant. They want to build a 1,000-seat, attraction restaurant, destination restaurant. Does that necessitate a second meeting?
No, since it is a zoning process and they've requested a rezone and say the zoning is approved and they've had their meeting, if someone comes in and it's appropriate zone, no second meeting would be required. Basically, it'd be similar to what we have in the ordinance now. If someone wants to rezone a property to build a gas station, they sell it. That buyer that wants to build a restaurant doesn't have to come back to the commission for appropriateness on the commercial zone.
Anyone else? Mayor Gardner.
Yeah, let me just play the devil's advocate as if I were a developer. This whole thing could lengthen the process for a developer because he's going to have a neighborhood meeting at both the annexation stage and the zoning change or the zoning stage. So that could lengthen it. Also, I'm concerned that the narrative, as John calls it, that the comments in the meeting summary that would be provided by the applicant. Now, if everybody that was at that meeting was in favor, I mean, those comments could be very slanted, and we wouldn't, without a staff person there, we wouldn't always know that they were exactly accurate. So there's no method or no way in there to verify the accuracy of those comments, even though Mr. Smith's position is that they probably would always be accurate, and I would have to agree with that, but we don't know for sure. And then you go over to the notice that's sent out with the letter. The notice that would be a letter that is signed by Cameron, the Planning and Development Director. In that third paragraph, it says that the purpose of this is to provide adequate time for the developer to negotiate with the neighborhood in order to resolve any issues and provide any proposed changes to city staff to evaluate. I think that wording is awkward because obviously the applicant is going to try to explain what they want, but the way that's worded, it almost makes it sound like there's some legislative authority there in what what happens with those comments. I mean, because it's not their job to negotiate with the neighborhood. It's to present the plan and hopefully to resolve an issue. So I just think that's awkward. So those are the three things that I would just think need to be looked at a little closer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else?
Can I clarify?
Go ahead. Somebody go. Go ahead, Daryl.
If as it's written now, we're not doing this, but if we did have a staff member or a planning and zoning member go to these meetings, does that not constitute a meeting, a city meeting? How do we avoid conflict there? It's like if I can't come up with a good example, but say that myself and one of the staff or somebody go, how does that keep from constituting a meeting? Maybe it's a legal question, but I don't know. I'm a little concerned with that end of it.
You mean you're not talking about a sunshine violation, are you? There wouldn't be a sunshine violation.
No, because they have to be 3 members.
Right.
But
you're saying if a commissioner is there or the chairman goes, is it now an official city meeting? Is that kind of your point?
I guess that's what I'd be saying, Chuck. How do we avoid that? Because that's not what we're wanting to achieve. But we need safeguards to make sure we are getting the true feelings of the property owners.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, we're still struggling with our video. I'd like to go back to the mayor's questions too after this, but we definitely have to look into that. But the intent of this was to provide that free time between the developers and these neighboring citizens around there. I don't think there's an issue with the commission going as long as there's no quorum that would occur. I imagine that if you were a resident in one of the subdivisions near a property application, you'd be wanting to go as well. I'm not sure that I'd recommend a staff going as well, because I think the focus would be on the city and putting the city in the middle of a dispute again between a potential issue between the citizens and the developers. So we definitely can look in that, but that is not the intent of this ordinance. The intent is for the staff or the commission boards not to attend these meetings. To go back and answer the time frame from the mayor, we looked at the existing calendar. The only way it would delay is if it's on the developer or applicant's part. It is working within our scheduled calendars for any application. We've included this within those time frames. And then as far as that concern about the negotiate, resolve, that's basically what that is referring to, is if there's any concerns that come up by a citizen, it allows them to make a recommendation or ask, or the developer to ask what would allow you to support this application. For instance, if it doesn't require a buffer yard, but the neighbor would like to see a buffer between the 2 properties, maybe they could go ahead and recommend and note that in their application that they're taking upon themselves to do to satisfy or appease those neighbors. So that's what that means as far as negotiate. It's basically just trying to resolve any concerns that would satisfy neighbors that would support an application.
Well, as far as someone from the commission going to these meetings, we've talked about that. I would have no problem attending these meetings, but I think that I think a member of the commission or the chair would have to be in the background just as an observer, and I don't think inserting themselves into the dialogue would be good in the long run, especially if they're getting ready to come to planning and zoning, and someone was to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I'd have no problem attending those meetings myself, but it would be on the basis of being in the background just as an observer. I guess just making sure that those comments are as accurate as the citizens are making them. What are the commissioner's thoughts on that? Would that make it a little bit easier for you to swallow, so to speak? Yes, John.
Yeah, I just I like the idea of, the idea of these meetings where, the people who the community represents itself and the developer represents that part of it. I like sort of leaving that alone to some degree so they can, there's no pressure from the city, from the staff. You know, I mean, everybody's an adult. They go in there and they talk about what is going on. And I also like, now that Cameron has explained it a little better, I actually like the word negotiate, because if members of the community feel like they may have the power to negotiate something a little better for their community from a developer based on this meeting, that's a good thing, in my opinion. So the language doesn't, I mean, it stuck out to me as well, but it doesn't bother me as much now that it's been explained that way. That's my 2 cents on this part of it.
John. Anyone else? Yes, Jeff.
Just go back for a moment on something Jean Ann hit it on, and I think Cameron even mentioned he did it in Springfield. I don't want to make it any harder for developers either, but I agree with everything that's been said. But do we have any feedback or knowledge of communities our size doing this process of having this type of meeting structure between developers and existing communities? Do we have anything like that to offer for information?
No, we don't have anything as far as other communities doing this neighborhood meeting. Basically, what has started this is based on some previous meetings where there's been a lot of concern from citizens of being frustrated because they can't ask questions and get answers to what's going on around their homes. And so since Springfield had this process, that's why staff had worked on creating a process for us as well, so that we can help address their concerns while at the same time not putting it back to where they were getting frustrated during those public meetings that they couldn't get the answers to their questions.
Okay. Let me go back and revisit the idea of someone from the commission attending. Would the commission prefer that no one from the commission attended these meetings and just let it, as John says, be between the developer and the residents? Would you feel better not having anyone there from the commission? Anyone?
Do we need to formalize that? Can't we just be notified of when there are these meetings, and then if we're able to attend and want to, we could do that for our own use?
I think he said that earlier. I think Cameron said that you have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Choose to do that. So we would just have to be notified, Cameron.
I would be cautious of having anything formal, because I think if the commission member was there, one person was there, that would put you guys in a corner of potentially appearing that you're representing the commission. And I don't think you want to put yourself in that position or put the rest of the commission in that position.
Okay, so we leave that alone. Is that the general consensus? Okay. Anything else on this? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve this as written.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve as written, amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter.
I'm sorry, forgive me, but I want to make the addendum that we are notified when the meetings take place. We have that notification in there as well.
Okay, so restate your motion.
I'm sorry, Chuck. I make a motion that we approve this as written with the addendum that the planning and zoning commissioners be notified of any such meeting that takes place.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion on the floor with an addendum that the commission was notified prior to the meetings to amend the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405, zoning regulations by enacting one new section, 405-080, neighborhood meetings. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Rex. Roll call vote, please.
Darryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Matt Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Rex Winslow,
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay, next up is the letter D, amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405, zoning regulations by adding one new section regarding conditional overlay districts. Mr. Smith.
Yes, this proposed ordinance is a conditional overlay district. The intent of this ordinance is to allow for a floating zone to be placed over top of a base zoning district. This would also provide limitations to a particular use or the zoning of that base zoning district. This would allow staff to, upon review with the applicant of their request for a zoning, to place additional conditions as a floating overlay zoning to maybe appeal to the surrounding zoning districts and also to help support this application going to the commission and board. Such items for this overlay district would include things such as increased buffer yards and landscaping of an application, a reduced height of a building, increased setbacks of a building, increased open space requirements, the restrictions of an operation of use, such as limitations on days, noise, intensity, lighting, or signage, increased minimum lot area dimensions, reduce the building coverage on a lot, off-site improvements related directly to the intensity of this development, such as road improvements, and then a modified design requirement of the actual structure. For example, something of maybe getting to some more of the aesthetics of the structure. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll open up the public hearing aspect of this, and if there's no one there to speak, assuming that's still the same, I will close it and turn it over to the commission. Comments, questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain some form of motion.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion on the floor by Rex to approve amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405 zoning regulation by adding one new section regarding conditional overlay districts. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Darrell McGuire. Roll call vote, please.
Darrell McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Matt Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Rex
Sorry.
Winslow. Did you say aye? Rex Winslow?
Yeah, aye.
Thank you. Pete Renfro?
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
All right, thank you all very much. Okay, next up, urban service area, update tiers. Mr. Smith.
Yes, staff has been working on updating the planning tier maps of tier 1, 2, and 3. The last time these maps were updated was in 2008 when the original agreement was created between the city of Ozark, Nixa, and Christian County. So in looking at our current utility plans in our traffic areas or the transportation areas, it kind of revised some of the boundaries for where we can adequately serve properties. These maps are used to help identify appropriateness for annexation and future development of the city. So staff is bringing this to the commission. It's not an actual ordinance, but just a recommendation of approval or denial of the map for the board of Aldermen. The second map in your packet is the tier 1 broken down further in tier 1A, B, and C to help identify even a more detailed serviceable area. However, the only maps that are of concern for the urban service agreement with the county is the tier map showing tier 1, 2, and 3. Be happy to answer any questions.
And you're looking for action on this tonight?
Yes, just a
Simply
recommendation.
as a recommendation, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Christine, as a recommendation, do I need to open us up to the public at all?
Yes, it's still a public hearing.
Okay, then I will open it up to the public for any comments or questions. Seeing none, I will close it and turn it over to the commission. Comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Yes, Darrell.
I'll make a motion. We recommend the council.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to recommend to council the urban services area update to update the tiers. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Jeff Garrison. Roll call vote, please.
Daryl McGuire,
Aye.
Jean Ann Hutchinson.
Aye.
Jeff Garrison,
Aye.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Matt Bettinghouse,
Aye.
Rex Winslow,
Aye.
Pete Renfro.
Aye.
Passed unanimously.
All right, good deal. Thank you. Okay, under discussion, is there any discussion from Alderman Poston or Mayor Gardner before we turn it over to the commission for commission comments? Well, good deal. All right, around the table, anybody have anything they want to talk about tonight? We're all just as happy as we can be, aren't we? Okay, any administrative comments from staff?
One comment, some of you may know, we'll let the rest of the commission know. Christina will be leaving us, not too long down the road. She is, moving, and I'll let her to fill you in more in detail if you have questions, but she will be relocating to Texas with some family. So
I'm sorry, I did not hear a motion, a second, or approval on that. So I think it dies for a lack of a motion.
this potentially will be her last meeting unless we can Zoom her in for some future meetings. But right now,
I vote we table it. We table this entire thing right here.
With no end date.
I'll second that motion, John.
So anyway, it is definitely a big loss for our department, and sad to see her go, but happier for her at the same time as well. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know, because I assume word will start getting out. We have yet to agree on an end date. I think it'll be after we all retire for sure, but anyway, we still got to come up with a date that she needs to relocate and be with her family.
Well, Christina, I wish you all the luck in the world, all kidding aside. I want to thank you personally for everything that you have done for me. Obviously, I need a lot of help. You figured that out early on, and you were prepared to give me whatever help that I needed and any guidance that I needed and to keep me out of trouble as best that you could. So I thank you for that. You've been a great partner in this process, and I appreciate you sincerely. And I do wish you a lot of luck moving to Texas.
I agree with that, Chuck. She knows she has to help me every month.
And from the city standpoint, I agree as well. You'll be missed. It's been fun. Best to you.
Thanks for everything, Christina. Thank you.
Okay, well, after that bad news, I guess we'll have to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Hey.
Aye.
Thank you all so much.
Thanks.